The Kalari salvage vessel Mercy's Edge drifted through the debris field like a scavenger picking through bones. Captain Vextal watched the scanner readings with 3 of his 4 eyes while the 4th monitored the radiation levels. The wreckage was extensive: twisted metal, crystallized atmosphere, and the unmistakable signature of a violent ship-to-ship engagement. "Another skirmish between the hegemony and the Outer Rim coalition," muttered his first officer, Zenra, her chitinous plates clicking in annoyance. "These mammals and their endless territorial disputes." Vextal's mandibles twitched in what passed for agreement among his species. The Kalari had seen countless wars come and go in their 3 millennia of spacefaring civilization. They had learned long ago that neutrality and salvage rights were far more profitable than picking sides in conflicts between younger species. "Wait," called out their sensor operator Felton from his station. "I'm detecting a faint energy signature, grid reference 447 Mark 23. It's unusual." On the main display, a small object tumbled slowly among the larger debris. It was roughly cylindrical, no bigger than a personal shuttle, but its hull configuration was unlike anything in their databases. "Unknown design," Zenra observed, studying the readings. "The metallurgy is primitive but robust. Look at these impact scorings. Whatever hit this ship, it took a tremendous beating." Vextal's interest was piqued. Unknown technology often meant unknown value. "Life signs?" Felton's antennae twitched as he refined his scans. "Faint but present. 1 occupant barely alive. The life support appears to be failing." "Bring it aboard," Vextal ordered. "Carefully. I want it intact." The Mercy's Edge deployed its recovery arm, a delicate operation given the fragile state of the craft. As they drew it into their cargo bay, the ship's artificial intelligence began its analysis. Hull composition indicates origin from a star system, approximately 47 light-years from our current position, the AI announced in its maddeningly calm voice. "Technological level suggests early FTL capability. No match in our database of known spacefaring species." When the cargo bay pressurized and the salvage team entered, they found themselves looking at something extraordinary. The craft, barely more than an escape pod, was beautifully constructed despite its primitive technology. Clean lines, efficient design, and most remarkably still functional after what appeared to be days adrift in space. Inside, they found him. The alien was bipedal, roughly Kalari-sized but built on completely different lines. Soft skin instead of chitin, bilateral symmetry, and what appeared to be hair-covering portions of his head. His breathing was shallow, his vital signs weak but stable. "Fascinating," Dr. Kesara murmured as she conducted her initial examination in the medical bay. "The physiology is remarkably adaptive. Look at these neural patterns. This species shows signs of extraordinary cognitive flexibility." Vextal studied the unconscious alien through the observation window. "What's his condition?" "Severe dehydration, exhaustion, some radiation exposure, but nothing fatal. He should recover fully. However, Captain..." The doctor paused, her voice taking on a note of concern. "I've been analyzing the damage patterns on his pod. This wasn't battle damage from a conflict between equals." "Explain." "The weapon signatures are wrong. They show signs of energy absorption rather than simple destructive impact. Whatever attacked his ship was feeding on it." A chill ran down Vextal's spine. The Kalari had encountered such beings before, in the darkest chapters of galactic history. Contact the Hegemony Medical Archive. Cross-reference energy-draining weapon signatures with known hostile species. 2 days later, the alien awakened. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb of the Terran Colonial Navy jerked into consciousness with a gasp, his hand instinctively reaching for a sidearm that wasn't there. The room around him was clearly alien. Curved walls, strange proportions, and the distinctive hum of artificial gravity generators operating on principles human science hadn't quite mastered. "Easy, easy," came a voice, and Webb turned to see what could only be described as a cross between a praying mantis and a lobster. Standing upright, and wearing what appeared to be a medical uniform. "You're safe. My name is Dr. Kesara. You're aboard the Kalari vessel Mercy's Edge." Webb's military training kicked in. Assess the situation, gather intelligence, determine threat level. "Where am I? How long was I out?" "You've been unconscious for 3 standard days. We found your escape pod drifting in a debris field." The doctor's voice was surprisingly gentle despite the clicking undertones. "I'm afraid your ship didn't survive whatever attacked it." The memories flooded back. The starfall on routine patrol, near the Proxima colonies, the distress signal that led them into the trap, the horror of watching those things tear his ship apart while feeding on its energy systems, the desperate evacuation, the escape pods launching into space with most of the crew still aboard. "My crew," Webb said urgently. "The other pods, did you find?" Dr. Kesara's expression was unreadable, but the subtle shift in her posture told him everything he needed to know. "I'm sorry. Yours was the only pod we recovered intact." Webb closed his eyes, fighting back the grief. 43 good people, dead because he'd convinced Captain Rodriguez to respond to what turned out to be a lure. The weight of command had never felt heavier. "What attacked you?" Dr. Kesara asked softly. Webb looked up, meeting her alien gaze. "We called them devourers, ships that ate energy, absorbed it right out of our hulls. They appeared out of nowhere. No warning, no communication. Just hunger." The doctor's compound eyes widened. "Describe them." "Exactly." Webb spent the next hour detailing everything he could remember about the attack. The organic-looking ships, the way they seemed to phase in and out of normal space, the horrible efficiency with which they dismantled the starfall. Dr. Kesara recorded everything, her agitation growing with each detail. When he finished, she was silent for a long moment. Then, "I need to speak with the captain immediately." Captain Vextal arrived within minutes, along with his first officer and another alien Webb hadn't seen before. Taller, with crystalline features, and an aura that suggested advanced technology. "This is Coordinator Zeflos of the Hegemony Intelligence Division," Vextal explained. "He's been monitoring our communications since you described your attackers." Zeflos stepped forward, his crystalline voice ringing like struck metal. "Lieutenant Commander Webb, the beings you encountered, we know them. They are called the Zimtar, and they represent one of the greatest threats our galaxy has ever faced." "Threats?" Webb asked. "They consume entire star systems," Zeflos explained grimly. "Not just the energy from ships, but from stars themselves. 3,000 years ago, they nearly destroyed galactic civilization before we managed to contain them in the dead zones, regions of space so depleted that even they couldn't survive there." Webb felt the blood drain from his face. "And now they're free?" "It appears so. Your encounter represents the first confirmed Zimtar sighting in over a millennium." Zeflos turned to Vextal. "Captain, this information must reach the Hegemony Council immediately. If the Zimtar have broken containment—" "What about my people?" Webb interrupted. "Earth, the colonies, are they safe?" Zeflos and Vextal exchanged glances. "Where exactly is your homeworld, Lieutenant Commander?" Vextal asked. Webb gave them Earth's coordinates, watching as Zeflos inputted them into a portable computation device. The Hegemony Coordinator's crystalline features darkened. "Your species' territory lies directly along the most likely expansion route from the dead zones," he announced grimly. "If the Zimtar are moving, your worlds will be among the first they encounter. Then I have to warn them," Webb said, struggling to sit up despite Dr. Kesara's protests. "My people don't know what's coming. They'll respond to first contact the same way we always do, with curiosity and attempts at communication. The Zimtar will slaughter them." "The nearest Hegemony communication relay is 6 days away at best speed," Vextal said. "Even if we could get a message through to your government, would they believe it? An alien warning about other aliens they've never heard of?" Webb thought about Earth's political situation, the fragmented colonial governments, the military's skepticism toward anything that couldn't be quantified and categorized. "No," he admitted. They wouldn't. Then what do you propose? Zephylos asked. Webb looked around at the 3 aliens who had saved his life, who were offering to help save his entire species. Take me home, he said simply. Let me deliver this warning in person. And, he paused, a desperate plan forming. Help me prove that humanity is worth saving. Captain Vextal's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The Mercy's Edge is a salvage vessel, not a warship. We're not equipped for combat against the Zemtar. You don't understand, Webb said urgently. Humans. We're different. We don't know when to quit. We adapt, we improvise, we fight dirty when we have to. If you can get me home, if you can help me warn Earth, we might be able to do something no one expects. What's that? Dr. Kesara asked. Webb's smile was grim. We might be able to win. 3 months after Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb's return to Earth aboard the Kalari vessel, Mercy's Edge, the Terran Defense Force had been transformed into something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Victoria Cross stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned TDF Dreadnought Retribution, watching the final preparations for humanity's first preemptive strike against an alien threat. Final squadron reports coming in, Admiral, announced Captain James Mitchell, Webb's former Academy roommate who now commanded the Retribution. All ships are green across the board. Cross nodded, studying the tactical display that showed the positions of Earth's hastily assembled warfleet. 47 ships in total, not large by galactic standards, but each one a testament to humanity's incredible capacity for rapid innovation when faced with extinction. The ships themselves were marvels of hybrid technology, human engineering combined with Kalari energy distribution systems, hegemony shielding technology freely shared once Coordinator Zephylos had convinced the Council that humanity represented their best hope against the Zemtar. The result was fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral, came Webb's voice from the communication station he'd insisted on manning personally. The Kalari scout ships are reporting Zemtar movement in the Kepler system. They're 3 days ahead of our projected timeline. Cross's jaw tightened. The Zemtar had been advancing toward human space exactly as predicted, consuming everything in their path. The mining colonies at Kepler 442 housed nearly 1 million people. Signal. The fleet, she ordered. We advance the timetable. All ships. Emergency burn to the Kepler system. We end this before they reach the colonies. As the fleet engaged their FTL drives, Cross reflected on the whirlwind that had followed Webb's return. The initial skepticism from Earth's governments had evaporated quickly once the Kalari delegation had arrived, with proof of the galactic community and the Zemtar threat. What followed was the most intensive military buildup in human history. But it wasn't just the ships that made humanity dangerous, it was the tactics. Webb had spent weeks with Admiral Cross and the Strategic Planning Committee, developing something the galactic community had never attempted: aggressive offensive operations against the Zemtar. Every species we've encountered fights defensively. Against them, Webb had explained during one late-night planning session. They try to contain, to minimize losses, to survive. But humans, we don't fight to survive. We fight to win. Now, as the human fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Kepler system, that philosophy was about to be tested. Contacts, announced Lieutenant Sarah Park from the sensor station. Multiple Zemtar vessels, designation Reaper class. Admiral, they're feeding. The main display showed a horrific sight. 3 massive Zemtar ships, they're organic. Hulls pulsing with stolen energy, had latched onto the Kepler system's primary star. Tendrils of pure energy flowed from the star's surface into the alien vessels, while smaller Zemtar craft swarmed around the system's outer planets. They're draining the star, Captain Mitchell observed grimly. At this rate, it'll go nova within hours. Not if we stop them first, Cross replied coldly. All ships battle formation Omega. We're going to show these things what happens when they threaten human space. The Terran fleet split into 3 attack groups, each employing tactics developed specifically for fighting the Zemtar. Rather than engaging at long range where the energy-draining aliens held the advantage, the human ships accelerated to ramming speed, their hybrid shields configured to actually absorb and redirect the Zemtar's energy weapons. Contact in 30 seconds, Mitchell announced as the Retribution led Battle Group Alpha directly toward the largest Zemtar vessel. Weapons hot, all decks report ready for combat. What followed would be remembered as the Battle of Kepler's Star, the first time in galactic history that anyone had successfully mounted an aggressive assault against the Zemtar. Human ships dove through swarms of enemy vessels like sharks through a school of fish, their weapons designed not to destroy, but to disrupt the energy flow that the Zemtar depended on. Target their feeding tendrils, Cross ordered as the Retribution closed with the primary Zemtar vessel. Webb, are you reading the energy patterns? Confirmed, Admiral, Webb replied, his voice tight with concentration. Their energy matrix is fluctuating. They're having trouble processing the star's output when under attack. All ships, focus fire on the primary vessel's connection points. Let's see how they like being hungry for a change. The battle raged. For 6 hours, human ships weaved through Zemtar defenses with a recklessness that bordered on insanity, their captains trained to think 3 steps ahead while improvising solutions to problems that had never existed before. When traditional weapons proved insufficient, they rammed. When ramming wasn't enough, they overloaded their own reactors and turned their ships into guided bombs. The TDF destroyer Vengeance was the first to sacrifice itself, Captain Torres detonating her ship's reactor core inside a Zemtar cruiser's energy matrix. The explosion didn't just destroy the alien vessel. It created a cascade failure that spread to 2 other Zemtar ships. They're adapting, Webb reported as the battle entered its critical phase. But not fast enough. Admiral, I think we're actually winning. He was right. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Zemtar were retreating. Their massive vessels, deprived of their energy sources and facing an enemy that refused to fight defensively, began withdrawing from the Kepler system. Let them run, Cross ordered as some of her captains requested permission to pursue. We've made our point. But the battle at Kepler was only the beginning. Word of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy faster than their ships could travel. Species that had cowered before the Zemtar for millennia suddenly found themselves inspired by the example of a race that had known about the threat for less than a year and had still managed to drive them back. The Hegemony Council, meeting in emergency session, made an unprecedented decision. For the first time in their history, they requested military assistance from a species not yet officially part of the galactic community. Coordinator Zeflos delivered the message personally, arriving at Earth aboard a massive Hegemony diplomatic vessel. Admiral Cross met him in the same room where Webb had first briefed Earth's leaders about the Zemtar threat. The Council has voted unanimously, Zeflos announced, his crystalline voice carrying undertones of amazement. The Terran Defense Force is to be granted emergency authorization to lead a joint galactic task force against the Zemtar. Webb, now promoted to Commodore and serving as Cross's strategic advisor, looked up from the holographic battle plans they'd been reviewing. With respect, Coordinator, we're not interested in leading anyone. We're interested in ending this threat permanently. I'm afraid I don't understand the distinction. Admiral Cross stood, her expression grim but determined. What Commodore Webb means is that we're not going to play defense. We're not going to contain the Zemtar or minimize casualties. We're going to hunt them down and eliminate them completely. Zeflos's crystalline features shifted in what might have been shock. Admiral, the Zemtar have survived for millennia. They've destroyed entire civilizations. The very concept of complete victory against them is impossible, Cross interrupted. That's what they said about our victory at Kepler. That's what everyone said when a single human survivor convinced 3 alien species to help him save his homeworld. She gestured to Webb, who was already pulling up star charts showing Zemtar positions throughout the galaxy. You saved 1 lost human, Coordinator. Now you're about to see why that was the most dangerous thing you could have done. Over the next 18 months, the combined galactic fleet led by human tactical doctrine and crewed by volunteers from dozens of species, systematically hunted down every Zimtar nest in the galaxy. They found them in the dead zones, in the empty spaces between stars, in the ruins of worlds they'd consumed centuries earlier. Each battle was fought with the same relentless aggression that had characterized the human approach at Kepler. No, Quarter asked, none given. The Zimtar, faced with an enemy that refused to simply defend and survive, found themselves outmatched for the first time in their existence. The final battle took place in the Zimtar's primary nest, a region of space, so drained of energy that even light seemed to move sluggishly. Admiral Cross personally led the assault aboard the Retribution, now the flagship of a fleet that numbered in the thousands. When it was over, when the last Zimtar vessel had been destroyed and their homeworld reduced to ash, the galaxy found itself at peace for the first time in millennia. The species that had terrorized the stars for eons existed now only in historical records and the memories of those who had fought them. At the victory celebration on Earth, Coordinator Zephylos approached Webb, who stood quietly watching the festivities from a balcony overlooking the restored lunar colonies. "I have to ask," the Hegemony Coordinator said. "When we found you in that escape pod, did you know this would happen?" Webb considered the question seriously. "I knew my people would fight," he said finally. "I knew we'd never give up. But this?" He gestured at the celebration below, where humans and aliens celebrated together under Earth's stars. "This was always possible. You just had to be willing to take the risk." "The risk of saving one lost human?" Webb smiled, the same grim expression he'd worn aboard the Mercy's Edge months earlier. "The risk of finding out what happens when you give humanity a reason to be grateful, and a target to aim at." As the celebration continued into the night, the galaxy's newest guardians planned their next mission. After all, the universe was a big place, and there were always more lost travelers to save, and more threats to eliminate for those who chose to save them.